Good morning, friends. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey today, you're welcome to be with us. Rejoice, my family and neighbors, for this is the day that our God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
I am playing the parting glass. It's a traditional Irish song.
Good morning, Erica.
Good morning, Diane.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
New
Year.
Year to everybody watching today.
Yes,
Would you pray in one voice with me?
absolutely.
I arise with,
Amazement,
at the presence of the Holy One. I arise with,
gratitude,
for life. I arise with,
hope,
that all shall be well. I arise with,
courage,
to meet what will be difficult. I arise with,
conviction,
to do what is life-giving. I arise with,
eyes ever alert,
for beauty. I arise with,
openness,
to greater truth. I arise with desire for continued transformation. I arise with,
compassion,
for the hurting ones in the cosmos. I arise with
Grief.
still settled in my spirit. I arise with
A sense of kinship.
all whom I love. I arise with
Respect.
as others mentor and deepen my vision. I arise with
Determination.
to make good choices in using my time. I arise with
Willingness to help.
those who need my care. I arise with
Hesitation.
as I think about pain that may come. I arise with
Longing.
for ever greater inner freedom. I arise with
Happiness.
knowing I'm invited to live fully. I arise with
Love.
for the Holy One, my intimate companion. May it be so. Amen. I'd like to read today from the Message, Isaiah chapter 43, verses 16 through 19. This is what God says, the God who builds a road right through the ocean, who carves a path through the pounding waves, the God who summons horses and chariots and armies. They lie down and they can't get up. They're snuffed out like so many candles. Forget about what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. Be alert, be present. I'm about doing something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? So, Erica, I'd like to invite you into doing a guided meditation with our people in the audience. So if you'd
Absolutely.
face a little bit this way, and I will guide you through the meditation.
Absolutely.
So take a second to go to your place of prayer, where you can be alone and feel the stillness. Begin by quieting your body and your mind. It's helpful to take a few deep breaths, breathing in and letting it out slowly. Do this for about 4 or 5 times. Now I invite you to recall the presence of the Holy One, dwelling in love within you. Turn your heart in remembrance to the one who shelters you. Now place in your open hands, with your palms up, these people and events of the past year. Place in your hands your loved ones, your colleagues and coworkers, those for whom you were responsible to offer care and concern for, those whom you've had differences and struggles with, and put all people and events and situations that held significance for you this past year, and anything that comes to your mind or heart. And just feel the weight of all of the past year in your hands. Say a prayer to the past that you hold in your hands and give them a blessing and let them go. Now in your open hands from the past year, place all your happinesses, your successes, your insights and awarenesses, your messages from God, the difficult things that helped you to grow, the awareness of spirit in your life, and whatever seems like a gift to you. Say a prayer of gratitude and be thankful for all of the gifts of your past year. And let them go. Now place in your open hands your whole life, all your concerns, your cares and your hopes for the future, and your dreams and joys. Place in your hands any specific persons whom you feel especially bonded to or hope to be in the new year. Place in your hands the beauty of the earth and anyone or anything else you're especially mindful of bringing into the new year with you. And say a prayer of hope and gratitude for the new year that you will be entering, and go in peace. So how was that for you, Erica?
Wonderful. Those guided meditations always really resonate.
Did you feel the weight of your
When you
hands?
said- when you said it, it was
they were
like-
weighty the past year, right? The difficulties and the yeah.
Exactly.
So to go forward, I thought we would explore these 7 questions from Carolyn Meese. Do you want to do them in order, or would you like to choose one to start off with?
We can go in order. That might be a little different.
Okay.
Not that I'm a linear thinker by any means, but yeah, this might be helpful.
We don't want to get dizzy
No.
and keep going in circles. What do you hope for this coming year that is different from other years? And I think we spoke on the phone a little bit about being hopeful and the weight of that word, and then knowing sometimes hope is not appropriate when we know it's not realistic, right?
Right.
So what do you hope for that will be different this year?
Well, before I came here, I had a session with I have a one-on-one session with like a life coach person, and I felt like it was really relevant to this conversation because we talked a little bit about hope. And one of the things that the word that came out, that kept coming out, was like a recommitment to. And while that's different from the word hope, it's helping to like recommit to visualizing things that are like attainable and hopeful, and all these things. It's like the SMART goals, but I'd like to make up a different little word to go with that. But there's like I am committed, and so it's just like establishing a recommitment to a hope. And one of the things that I hope is different is that, here at this church spiritually, that we are able to kind of move forward. We have a lot that 2023 holds for us, especially in regards of a pastoral search committee, but also like new leadership coming in and new partnerships arising all the time, and there's
that organic piece,
Yeah.
that grassroots piece, right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
that's what I think I hope for is that I don't get stuck in thinking that I have to arrive someplace. It's always in progress for me. So like you said before, it's a continuation of an old hope. We never fully get there.
right.
So the ability to, within that hope, see the growth that I have made or we have made,
Right.
and not to feel like I needed to fully arrive. We have to revisit constantly.
Yeah.
And I want to put my hope in revisiting, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's okay.
Absolutely. Recommitting,
Yeah.
revisiting. Those
Yeah.
are all some good, strong R words
Yeah.
outside of,
And that asks us to
Resolution.
reconcile with ourselves, right?
yes.
Because so many times I find that if I feel that if I think linear, that I haven't arrived there by next year, then I didn't achieve what I needed to do. So I need to keep revisiting that over and
Right.
over and over again.
Right. And that's where maybe that word, I'm really stuck on some R words today, but reevaluate. Just
Exactly.
sit back, relax,
Exactly.
recoup,
Recoup.
reevaluate.
Right,
and,
right. And to sit back and to rest and recuperate. Yeah.
Because those are all pieces that kind of tie into that, like, well, you didn't do enough because you didn't arrive. You didn't do this because you didn't. So it's that productivity kind of conversation we've had off and on with, like, it's okay for you to kind of just sit back a little bit and regroup, recoup, all these words,
Yeah.
all these beautiful R words that are coming, that are revealing themselves to me. So,
And I think it goes back to that notion of, like, we think once Jesus is born, like, well, we put all our focus on
Yeah.
Jesus and we forget Mary, who's postpartum, who needs care and restoration. So I'd like to be able to bring that to my presence and my personal life and the life in the church. There are times we need to, after we've given birth or we've started something new, to be able to say, hey, I need some hot soup or something,
Yeah.
a cup of tea, and just sit back and be okay with it.
yeah,
And let it evolve naturally.
revel in it.
Revel. I like that. You're hot with your
I'm
R
hot
words.
with my R words today.
Hot with the R words. How do you want to improve your life this year?
Well, I want to do more caring and loving things for myself and also for the people around me, but it also starts with me.
It
like
starts
being
with
able
you,
to-
yeah.
Right.
Put on your own oxygen mask first,
Correct.
right? Because,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like to do more the loving, caring things for myself first.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always been a practice. I think when my mom was younger, probably, and I have compassion for just doing this and doing it all and being all the things, and that's not necessarily the way of self-care. So there's a big piece of that I.
I think often we find ourselves, well, at least I do, we find ourselves that life presents us many little fires that we constantly feel we need to put out.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we never stop to smell the roses.
Right.
And I think I said to you on the phone yesterday, I have a really unhealthy relationship with time. I have a time police on my shoulder. So to improve my own life, I want to be able to be more in the moment. And I think that's what really spiritually we're called to be in ministry as church. You know, often we get ahead of ourselves with agendas and plans for the future, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's a very healthy and normal thing. But when we just get fixated on that, and we've got the situations right before us that are screaming out, we need your presence. We need you here at this moment. So I'd like to be more conscious of that.
Yeah. And I think, too, that with that more loving, caring things, is just like maybe renewing, being a little, bringing more like spiritual practice. I think that's a piece that I've not really always, I remember it on Sundays and I remember it sometimes during the week. But it's just a little mini practice that maybe we should remember every day, and it just kind of helps you feel more connected to.
I couldn't agree with you more as a spiritual director. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Question 3. What do you want to contribute to your community to make it a better place? And I guess we need to discuss a little bit, what is community? Like, is it the community, the church community, the community outside the church, community in your neighborhood, or all of the above?
Well, I think of community as like, when you look at like a rain puddle and rain's falling in it, and the circles are kind of overlapping, and there are so many things that do that in life, and community.
The ripples.
Yes, the ripples,
The
and
ripples.
just the circles kind of touching each other. And I think that happens in a lot of, like I said, pieces of our life that we don't always recognize. That's kind of how I see my own.
So your community is discerned by your spiritual awareness of what community is at the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
So like here is like one community, and working with the village is another community, and staff and folks. But then I have my neighbors, and I have my friends, and I have my family, and my sons, and my husband, and my family, like my mother, and there's kind of all these little things that.
And we have community across the ocean right now,
we
right?
do. We have community.
And being aware of what community is, I think, is the first part of the question.
Right.
During the holiday season, I found out that our good neighbor was taken into the hospital. He had fallen. He has ALS, and he was going into hospice. And I had been putting off seeing this person and bringing over a little something for the wife. And I said, I know I focus on one community more than any other community, but this is the time to take care of this community now. Yeah.
Well, and I think, too, that there's one of the things that I think gets overlooked, and especially during the pandemic, I felt like the online community was like a way to connect with people. I think people were looking for connection. They couldn't always leave, and I already have connections overseas, over the pond. How's it going?
And in Idaho, and in Malala, and in India, we have all those connections.
All these places. Yeah. But personally, just with those, being able to start a little like side business and have other makers and creators, and finding other people like Mandy from Simple Sundries, and a friend of mine who makes these wonderful beaded earrings, and just like, but kind of just keeping, because we all kind of started at the same
that's
time.
another aspect of that. That's connecting community, right?
Yeah.
It's networking community and creating a broader community other than just the little ones in silos here and there.
Right. So that's those.
And I think we have that in common. We like to do that. We like to bring together the like-minded people. Yeah. And then that's the bigger, broader, interconnected global community that we're seeing modeled before us on the internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think there's just components of it all that are really part of my magical mud puddle, with raindrops circling each other.
And ripples.
Yeah.
How do you want to be different by the end of the year? And I read Annie Lamott today, and she says, don't say, I want to lose 20 pounds by the end of no diet stuff.
No,
how do you want to be different by the end of the year?
Well, I think that like being able to reflect and love about what was good and the work that I did, and those little small successes, like thinking those, but also carrying that energy and finding what was so good about those things and putting those into the new year.
Taking the time to celebrate them.
To celebrate them, not like, bless and release kind of thing. This is something
No, really
right.
embrace it and feel good about it.
Right.
Yeah, because they do say psychologically that our negative thoughts and our negative reactions to things stick on our brains like Velcro. The positive, we have to really like revel in it, in our word. We have to revel in it for a long time for it to have any meaning within us.
Right.
And I think that also is a sense of what I'd like to see for myself more of, is working out of a sense of celebration and power than doubt and fear.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of doubt and fear out there. And I know we're trying a lot of new things and we've made a lot of mistakes, but I still want to be able to work out of what I feel my personal power is and personally celebrate those things we've done.
Yeah. And the things that wasn't done so well, it was like, well, then those are those
celebrate
moments,
the learning experience.
Celebrate, that's an opportunity to learn,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So just trying to honor that and then carry that into, and just feeling a little more, the word, I need an R word. No, just feeling like moving into that and just recommitting to those.
And I think what it really calls of us is to be more humane each and every day. Really to embrace the fullness of what it means to be a human being with all our feelings, not just the feelings we want to bring to church, because we call ourselves a people of faith. Well, I'm a person of doubt too, so that's okay.
I got a little dash of that myself. So, yeah.
Whose life do you want to improve, and how will you do that? Now that could be a very codependent question, but I think it's got a good.
Well, it's the putting on your oxygen mask first, kind of like, I'm always looking to kind of do those little improvements for myself personally. But I also feel like I'm a mother and I have 2 sons, and not that I need them to improve their lives, but I'm just saying, but to be there and support and cheer them on.
Of course,
those kind of things. And my hubby and people around me and my friends, and I think just how will I do that? I will be your biggest cheerleader. I will, I will always tell you when you have toilet paper hanging off your shoe, or when you need to zip up, or you have your sweater buttoned or something like that. But I will also cheer you on in other ways too. So I won't do that in front of people. Just saying. But I think just like improving, just recommitting that to the compassion in the sense of the kinship, and looking back at our prayer in one voice, some of those words just jumped out at me, and that's how I will do that, is recommit.
And I think when you're okay with yourself and you're in that place of okayness with you can be fully present to other people.
Yeah.
So that's one of the places in ministry I'd like to be for people, and in spiritual direction with my spiritual directees, but also now with my uncle who's facing his last years. I feel I want to improve his leaving this world in a way by being more present for him than I was able to do with my parents, because that was so overwhelming and in such a short span of time, that now that I've had that experience behind me and know what I would have liked to have done maybe a little bit better with a little bit more compassion, I'm hoping I can improve his passing for him too. Yeah. But that also means I have to sit with my own grief, and we've discussed that on the phone. To have anything new happen in life, you have to go through your own grief. Yeah.
And allowing that to feel those feels, and then move forward, So.
What changes are unfolding in your life that you need to cooperate with, and what does that mean?
Well, I think that, the anxiety part of me wants to plan everything out, but the little dash of procrastination that I have too also is like I get a little anxious about performing or doing X, Y, and Z. So I'm trying to think about those. There are changes that are unfolding all the time and every day. There's new leadership. There's pastoral calls, and things are ever evolving with the village and partners and that kind of thing. So there's all these things that are kind of unfolding, and you need to be a team player. I mean, I think about situations in my family with caring for my mom, and those are all things that you kind of need to be a team player with, and need to. And again, I'm recommitting myself to all of those things, and being an instrumental. I don't know what that word means, but I mean just being a bigger piece of trying to make that happen for people, and when it doesn't work out like you think it's going to work out, like
to regroup,
reset,
reset
hit the reset button and regroup,
and feel those feelings of grief. Because often what happens is when we have an expectation, and expectations are wonderful. We have an expectation and we're disappointed. We forget we're disappointed. We go on to fix what didn't work out. And we don't sit back with the grief and really say, okay, that was hard. Because I really wanted to see it, do it this way, and I couldn't do it like that. And I think the pandemic has taught us a lot about that.
Right.
You know.
Well, and one of the things, the practices that you brought in for me and Aaron was the debriefing of stuff, because there was a lot of like traumatic, messy stuff that happened. And there is no way a human being should walk around on this planet with feeling that way and not having someone to debrief with to kind of reflect and regroup and reset. Those are.
And I think for me, what's unfolding is the reality that within probably the next 6 months, I will no longer be here.
I know.
So it's kind of, for me, it's knowing I am starting to navigate my own grief now. Like, this is going to be a last of this, and this is going to be the last of that. And not to be able to let that feeling own me, because I feel there's a lot to be done yet and a lot of life to be had together. But just to know that it's there. Like, not to say, oh, okay, I'll just work myself so I don't have to feel that.
Yeah. Well, it was with our big change this year, one of the big changes we had was our youngest moving out.
Wow. Empty nest.
Empty nest.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Obviously, we were having a great time putting puzzles together. Like, we finished 2 500 and 1,000 pieces. But people, oh, how are you doing? Are you okay? And I'm very happy for him. I'm very happy for my oldest son to be able to like live on their own and experience that, and kind of like, you know, I would love it when Russell would say, like, I'm not gonna lie, adulting's hard. Like, yes it is, son. So now he's out on his own, and I felt like, oh, I'm doing, he's great. I'm happy for him. The place is wonderful. His roommates are great. Blah 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 blah. I excuse myself and I go in the restroom, and I'm like looking up, and his towel hook has no towel on it. And that's when I felt this little like
the emptiness.
He's gone.
He's really gone.
It's like a little tiny bit of grief, and it was just weird how those kind of things just snap up on you like that. So
and then before you know it, he'll be gone for like 6 months, and then he'll want to come home for a week or something. You go, oh my God, he cooks at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I'm okay with that. I see my boys as being these big, wonderful sandhill cranes, and they'll fly away, but they might come back. They might come back to their little, and they will. They'll always come back. So I'm ready for any sandhill crane to come back to my house. So,
And our last question: in what ways do you want to deepen your spiritual life?
Well, that's that recommitment word again. Recommit to.
Well, what works for you? Because people have an idea about spiritual practices being something like you have to be silent all the time, or you have to.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me, really. I don't think I do.
So it does work.
Well, I think that just being contemplative, whether that means being in nature, being by myself, taking a moment and reflecting. But I also just like, sometimes in the minutia of stuff, things will pop out. And so just allowing for that to, you know, it was this funny little conversation I was having with my healer. We were talking about being strong and standing like a tree, and like when trees are in peril, what do they do? I had this little image of in Lord of the Rings, the movie, when the trees come and help, you know, everybody. And there, if you look in one of the scenes where, you know, I think like Pippin or Mary are up in the tree, and they're swaying in the branches, and some of the trees are on fire, and one tree runs to this river and puts his crown is on fire, and he puts his crown out. And I feel it just popped up. It was just one of those things where I'm talking with somebody about, and it's this little image, and she said, well, what was that? And I said, well, I sort of shared the image. And she's like, well, I don't think that's a bad thing. She's like, but I think that's where you can, like, you are able to put out those fires. You are able to stand like a tree and be strong. And I was like, yes. So those are those kind of things where it's just allowing for those little things to pop in and say, hey, ho, here's a little thought. Think about that. Think about how that might apply to what you're thinking about. And that, I refer to that as like my squirrel brain, because sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, and but I'll be thinking about something pretty serious.
But I think it goes back to what you said before. It's about kind of having a spiritual practice of knowing yourself and being okay with you.
Yeah.
Right? So you can be fully present to that
Right.
and what's going on around you.
Right. And to not exhaust things. Like I feel like if you're not feeding yourself that way, then it's then finding out what your needs are and what you require.
Right, because often we can take a spiritual practice, or we could take a fix it, make myself better, and we could make that something else to do. And that's not the point of it.
No.
So maybe the point is just sometimes just doing absolutely nothing and just being.
Being.
Right?
Yeah.
Being.
Yeah.
Being
And that
okay
is a
with
tough practice for somebody who, you have this productivity, like you're supposed to be doing things.
Right. Like how
get
do you
going.
stop it from that?
And so just taking a moment to pause and just, so I feel like to recommit myself to some type of practice like that, and just being able to slow it down and reflect and regroup and relax.
Yeah, I like to use it at home. I still like to use rosary beads because I like the feeling of touching something as I'm meditating, or smelling aroma. Yeah.
Aromas are very big for me too. So it's feeling that, maybe listening to like a meditative podcast or a meditation of some sort. That's always a good one too. And just sometimes just like, there's all sorts of music available to us online, and sometimes I just find like a nice little, and it's like 10 hours of Viking vibes or whatever, and it's just like basically drums and like crackling fire. And it's just these sounds are really important
Well,
to
the
me.
vibration.
Yeah,
that's
and
important.
visuals and just those are things that I kind of go like, those just help me kind of soothe. a
Right,
little bit,
and
too.
I think the other thing that really helps me quite a bit is body awareness, doing body practices, because it's not just in our heads and it's not just in our hearts, it's in all of us.
Attending to this one is
Yeah.
how you feel, and when you think of something, what does it make you think of, and where do you feel that?
Where do you feel it, right?
Yeah.
Well, anything else with our 7 questions?
No, I think this has been lovely, and I really hope people can take some of what we're talking about with them too, and think about them themselves. So thank you, Dianne.
Thank you.
Let's stay away and listen to that dawn. Before the birds, before they all wake up, it's the ending of a play. Soon begins another. Hear the leaves apply the wind. See the sun come rising, and white wings start to fly. Like strings of
don't want to leave the station now. The leaves applaud our stay. Lend me your wings and teach me how to fly. Show me when it rains, the place you go to. And the curtains draw then, and how another day leaves upon the wind.
So, in closing, let us offer each other a sign of peace from my heart to your heart. From my heart to your heart. Let us pray together. In this new year, we pray to live deeply, with purpose, to live freely, with detachment, to live wisely, with humility, to live justly, with compassion, to live lovingly, with fidelity, to live mindfully, with awareness, to live gratefully, with generosity, to live fully, with enthusiasm. Help us to hold this vision and to renew it daily in our heart. May it be so.
And God